Hey everyone, today I'll be talking about Jetpack Compose with maps. My name is Daniel Slone and I'm actually a senior iOS engineer at Bilue. My spare time I like playing with declarative programming such as Jetpack, SwiftUI, and a little bit of Flutter too. A little bit of a disclaimer, this code's about a year old now. When I was putting this talk together yesterday, I noticed about 6 months ago, there's actually a Compose Maps package released. And so this is actually the old way of doing it with the XML view based wrapper. So some of the topics I'll be covering this evening, but I won't be going into how to generate the API key nor the Gradle packages for it, just covering the basic UI elements for it. So one of the more important things will be the lifecycle handling, and we actually need to create a composable function to remember our map view and also attach observers to it. So we actually need to go in and grab the ID of the map and set it on the map view itself, and then one of the more important things for this is we actually need a disposable effect to properly observe and also remove the observers for the lifecycle events. And as you see, the lifecycle event observer is pretty straightforward. Each event corresponds to whatever the map view on start, on resume would be. And so now we have that, we can actually start looking at how we can start using the map view itself to actually see some maps. So I've actually abstracted some various functions here just to help a little bit. So if we remember the function that we just created, we can actually need to call that and pass that in towards something, whatever that might be. Android view wrapper will be what we'll see here later, but I've created this map view container and passing certain variables in. You really don't need it that long, but we'll see why I actually have hard-coded it just for proof of concept. I would highly recommend not hard-coding. This map view container just has its launch effect and Android view. If you look at the bottom, that's all you really need just to see something, play with a map. But that won't be fun if it's not, if you don't have anything on it or anything like that. We can also add this launch effect, so it only happens once when it's first called. And with that lat long, we can actually move towards with the camera whatever lat long we provide. That happens just to be Melbourne. So, add markers. It'd be pretty bare if we didn't have any sort of markers or polygons or anything to give us information about stuff. So, I have now added some states, collecting some state from my view model and properly reacting to it. So, I have a loading state and also a data loaded state. And one of the more important things is we need to get this map asynchronously, and then I'm grabbing my data off the back of that to plot it, to add it to the map. There's better ways to do it. This is just mostly just as a proof of concept to see some markers on the map. In this situation, it'd probably be better for clustering. But if we look at map.addMarker, we have these marker options. And so we have position and title that are independent, and we don't necessarily have to set any of these, which is actually a bit interesting. And so zoom controls. Actually, by default, you can turn them on, but it's more funner to make your own zoom controls, just as a proof of concept of Jetpack Compose, learning it a bit more. So now we've added a few new items to it, such as the property for zoom, which is remember savable of the map view, which remembers the map, and this mutable state of initial zoom. So this will actually give it initial state, and then we can update it here in the future, as you'll see down below. So I've now actually abstracted this Android view into a separate composable function that we'll see in a moment will zoom in and out like we want to. And I've created just a map button column, just plus minus on 2 buttons, and an on zoom change that will update all the zooming whenever those buttons are pressed. And if we look at map share, bike share map, we have this coroutine scope that's really important that we should have it outside of the Android view update block, as that will remember the current scope that you have instead of having it in the actual update block. And if you look in the actual update block, we can do all this setting of the zoom, moving the cameras, and updating the actual XML map view itself, all in there. And actually, these are the resources that you can find for, say, the code that I wrote, and also the new composed map SDK that I now know is a thing. Any questions? Yep.
Can you tell me, does it provide straight view, just different sort of view as we have in normal Google Maps?
Yeah, you can, with the options on the map, you can actually tell satellite, street view, etc. But I'm not entirely for sure how.
This is why the camera makes importance. Because you look at plain maps, the camera doesn't really matter. But you look at the straight view, maybe the camera where the camera position takes an effect.
Yep.
Right? And is that feedback? So I select, I tap a particular longitude, latitude. Can you tell me what I tap?
Yeah, you could do something like that. The code that's actually in my repository on Git actually doesn't have that code in that, but you theoretically could add something such as that to it.
You have a feedback. This is what? As they Google tell you where you tap something.
Yeah, you can register for the listener to be able to do something such as that.
In fact, what I'm looking for, you got the position on the screen. This position is converted into latitude and longitude, something like that.
Yep.
So I can trap the events myself.
Correct.
But as long as I get via position on the screen, longitude and latitude, that's would be great. I don't know anything about that.
In terms of Jetpack Compose, I do not. I've done that in other languages, such as iOS, but I'm certainly sure that you can do this with Jetpack Compose, as what you're asking me.
Yeah, it's kind of outside the scope of this talk, but if you know an API, you can integrate it.
Anybody else with questions?